here. Let's turn this on. Did I get a... There we go. There's your Mike Brown on TV. There's your comments.
Got it.
If you want to look at them. So when we go live, when we're ready to call, we'll put the number up on the screen.
Okay.
Oh, there's your comments.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You want to look at them. So that's what they're hearing.
Okay.
And remember, you're on a delay.
Right.
Okay? So when we go live, when we're ready to call, we'll put the number up on the screen.
Okay.
Oh, there's your comments. Right? You want to look at them. So that's what they're hearing.
Okay.
And remember, you're on a delay.
Okay.
Okay? So when we go live, we're ready to call, we'll put the number up on the screen.
All right. Good to go? Just checking. Okay.
So that's what they're hearing. Remember, you're on a delay. I thought I muted that.
All right, good afternoon. We are live. What's in it for the Black People Radio? This is Triggered. I'm Instructor Mike Brown. Instructor Mike Brown, what's going on? So today, we are going to just dive right on in. I want to thank you all for viewing, and we're going to answer again the question, what's in it for the Black people? We're going to talk about that too. But let's dive into the topic, policing. To serve and protect or to serve and neglect? Let's talk about that. If you're in Chicago, if you pay attention to Chicago media, Chicago news, you know what's happened just this past Sunday. The rioting that took place a Sunday about 12 a.m. Gold Coast neighborhood, and it happened in the wake of the shooting, the 5700 block of South Racine, where police officers were chasing after a person they believed to be a carjacking suspect. And shots were fired, exchanged between them two, and he was eventually struck. And there was a lot of misinformation that was being placed out there, such as him being a 20-year-old or a 15-year-old male black. And then from there, we got the rioting. So let's talk about that. And I'm very interested in seeing some of your comments, and later we'll have a chance to take in calls so that we can discuss this, because we need to have an honest conversation about that. So, the rioting, what, if anything, were we going to get out of going downtown and destroying people's property and businesses and things like that? How does that begin to solve the problem? Now, let me give you a preface for this show. The name of the show is obviously called Triggered. And why is that? Because I'm going to trigger you for sure. I am a controversial person. I have no problem being that. Some of the best times and some of the best moments where you actually help yourself is at a moment of discomfort. it's easy to talk about, and it's easy to relish in the fact that you're comfortable. But when we are in a position of discomfort, you have one of two options that you have to make. You have to get off that X and make that move towards protecting yourself and protecting others, or lie in that area of discomfort. So myself being a former police officer, I get the comments such as you don't know about the struggle, you don't know what we go through, you don't understand some of the problems that could trigger a lot of the issues or a lot of the things that go on. People don't talk about those things. And so I also get the other side of that too, whereas I understand the necessity to want to have law enforcement get reform, but there are some things within our community that we need to fix too. And so I am that type of person who will greatly trigger you. I'm also that type of person that will that wants to hear your comments and wants to hear it backed by stats, facts, and figures. And I think it just in this point, yes, you do have a lot of rioting, which really serves no purpose. I saw the connection, whether I disagree or not, with the George Floyd incident that happened in Minnesota, where former officer Derek Chauvin placed his knee in the neck of George Floyd, and then the subsequent protests, peaceful or otherwise, that resulted as a result of that, and then the rioting that occurred in not just downtown but all over, that just destroyed a lot of our resources that we use every day. And so, now the conversation that is taking place is, what are the police doing to stop rioters from going downtown and messing with people's property? And what, if anything, is that going to do for us? When I teach my concealed carry classes, that's one of the things that I've been talking about lately, is about the rioting. If you understand rioting being the language of the unheard, and those of you all who know, Martin Luther King is famous for saying that during the sanitation workers' strike in Memphis, Tennessee, where the rioting had occurred subsequent to that. And they asked Martin Luther King, well, what, if anything, could be done about the rioting? Well, rioting is the language of the unheard. And if you hear people's logic, if you will, they would say, well, the rioting is occurring because, we're telling you, stop disproportionately policing us the wrong way. Stop treating us the wrong way. Stop profiling us. Stop treating us bad. We have the right to breathe the same air, be in the same space as you, and you keep treating us bad. And so if you're not going to pay attention to us, then yes, we are going to mess up your property and mess up your area where you're comfortable. We're going to make it uncomfortable for you, since you're going to make it uncomfortable for us. And I get that. I really get that. But then there's the other side of that too. And we're going to segue back into policing. But there's the other side of that too, such as the language of the unheard regarding the demographic of who among the rioters are not being paid attention to. And that's the young people. In my time and in my career as a police officer, former cop, I've dealt with both youth and adults. And when you get them in the box, what we would call the interrogation room, when you get them in there and you begin to talk to them, not on this good cop, bad cop thing, but on this, just approaching man to man or man to woman, what's the issue? What's the main issue? And then you begin to dig deep and you begin to get to the nucleus of the problem, that some of this stuff is about parents. And I hear everybody else is being, held to the fire, held to the carpet. You got the state's attorney who was just on all the news outlets being made to come to the carpet about the prosecution rates and why are you not prosecuting this and why are you letting this go? And then Superintendent Brown and the police, being put to the forefront. Why are they not, dealing with the policing issue in our area? Why do you police our area, the south and west sides, differently than you police the north? Why is the Gold Coast area something that is so heavily protected, but the south and west sides get neglected by police protection? You hear all of these comments, all these questions. And Superintendent Brown, whether you like him or not, Superintendent Brown made a great statement that I actually agree with, and he had the guts to be able to say that. He said that as long as, with the problems that we have, and I'm paraphrasing him, as long as we have the problems that we have with the issues involving the south and west sides, as long as it's just the police here, just the police, only answering the questions of the media, we won't solve this problem. This problem will continue to go on. And he is absolutely correct. And People don't like the fact that he's an outsider, but it's good that we got that outside perspective. You didn't hear that from Superintendent Johnson. You didn't hear that from Superintendent Klein. You didn't hear that from Superintendent McCarthy. You didn't hear that from Superintendent Matt Rodriguez. I don't even know if you heard it from Fred Rice. I wasn't alive during that time, but I don't know if you heard that during that time. And so why is it just the focus on the police? Ronald Reagan said it best. Whether you like him or not, I'm a sucker for a good statement coming from even the most controversial person. Ronald Reagan even said it best: when you rely on the government to do more for you than you do for yourself, that's where a percentage of the failure, if not the greatest failure, is. A lot of us don't even recognize Chapter 725, Illinois Compiled Statutes, Act 5, Section 107-3. That's the statute for a private citizen's arrest. The state law, the legislature, has empowered us with the ability to be able to stand up and take our communities back. Take our communities back. It's empowered within the law. You don't need the police. You will not find one body of case law, that's law that comes out of the courts. You won't find one body of case law that says that you have to call the police. Yet you have to call the police. You won't find that. And so if you don't have to call the police, but there's a problem that has to be solved, when you keep giving to someone else the duty to solve your problems, and they don't reside in the community. So maybe they don't understand black issues. Maybe you don't understand. You can be the agent of change to help them understand that. I see this as a human conflict problem. Racism is never going to stop. Sexism is never going to stop. Terrorism is never going to stop. It's an ism. It's an ideology promoted and pushed by humans, and it's not going to stop at all. It's not an American thing. You had an issue with the Romans. You had an issue with the Egyptians. It's a human thing. So what do we need to do to police ourselves so that we can serve and protect instead of ignoring and deflecting? Some people don't even understand this, that there's a case law. And like I said, I teach concealed carry. And one of the things that I deal with, I get a lot of people that come from different backgrounds, some who are victims of crimes, some who are victims of domestic violence. And so, the thing is, when you get a person to realize where they haven't done for themselves, where they've relied on someone to protect them. Anytime you rely on someone to do for you what you can do for yourself, you have some people who will protect you genuinely. That happens. They recognize that you can't do. But then you have some who will capitalize on what you don't do for yourself, and they will continue to use you only for what they get out of your blissful and your ignorance. And I'm not calling you ignorant. I love you enough to be able to say this. Those of you all who are watching and listening, I love you enough to be able to say this. But at some point in time, when do we stop blaming the police and when do we start focusing on us? And that doesn't mean that we don't require them to treat us with respect, that we don't require them to treat us as if they would want to be treated. But I just can't help but remember the time during the first riot, where we were messing up our own stuff in our own community. And we were messing up stuff downtown too, right? And it's not just black folks, it was a healthy mixture, right? And then when the resources are all messed up, they're all gone, now you want to go to another community, to their Family Dollar, to their Dollar Tree, to their Aldi's, to their this and to their that, and they stood up in patrols and said, you're not coming over here. And what was the unintended consequence? Some innocent folks who had nothing to do with the rioting. They weren't a part of that. But as a part of what happens in human conflict, they killed some innocent black folks because they just didn't know. And I'm not excusing it. That's not what we're doing. But we got to understand reasons. We got to understand motives. We got to understand choices. And so that's why I said this. Triggered. I'm going to trigger you. I'm going to ask those tough questions. My job is to piss you off. And that's what I'm going to freaking do. Because therein, in that healthy space of discomfort, lies the change that maybe, just maybe, needs to happen in our community. And that's the tough spot to be in. A very tough spot to be in. Who wants to recognize when it's you? Especially when you're hurt. Who wants to recognize that? Who wants to do that? When you have a dagger inside of you, in order to get that dagger and bring about that change that needs to happen, you're going to have to pull it out. And it's going to hurt when you pull it out. But some people don't even want to pull it out. Some people want to keep it there. They want to keep it there. We got to do better. We got to do better. So, we got to do better. All right, so we're going to talk about the police because I'm going to give you both sides of that too. I'm going to give you both sides of that too. Some of the stuff that I even talk about in class, I'm going to talk about here too, because I think there's some things that need to happen. There is reform that needs to happen on the side of the police too. And we're going to talk about that too. I'm going to reveal some things in Triggered. No holds barred. I'm going to reveal some things that you may not have understood about police training. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. We're going to go ahead and take a break. All right. And when we come back, we are going to talk about some of the things that we need to discuss, and that we're also going to talk about maybe some of the things that we need to do in our own homes too. Because you know who was the first police officer? You know who the first lawyer was? You know who the first doctor is? You know who the first pastor is? You know who the first priest is? Your parents. And you don't have to always come from a two-parent home, right? You have that strong mother. For some of you, have that strong father. But we're going to dig deep into the childhood too. We're going to learn some things about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're going to learn some things about mommy, daddy, please teach me. We're going to learn some things about what I tell myself about self-protection. We're going to face the tough issues. Because when I was growing up as a kid in Chicago, born and raised in Chicago, I wasn't worried about the white man. I hadn't met a white man that I actually had contact with until I was doggone 16 years old. I was worried about Tyrone and Demetrius trying to chase me across the doggone field from Beethoven to 4946 South State. That's what I was worried about. And why is that the case? Why is that the case? We will be right back shortly.
Now I'm gonna show you. You can go back live yourself. Get
Okay.
yourself situated.
Okay.
Let's go to that one. All right. Now, when you're ready to go back, just hit preview live, and you'll be when this screen. This is what's being seen on the screen.
Okay.
This is what's previewing.
Okay.
Boom. That'll go on. You're live.
Okay. So just hit preview.
Hit it right
Hit
here.
live.
Hit preview.
Okay.
Preview live.
Okay. All right, so we're back. Let's dive right into it. You know, before we begin to talk about the topic of to serve and protect or to serve and neglect, let's go over a few things that you may or may not have known about policing. Okay. In my experience as a police officer, I was also a police trainer. Okay, so in that area, I want you to understand something. Law enforcement officers in the state of Illinois, they all have to attend some sort of police academy. And in attending a police academy, there is a final examination that certifies a person to be a law enforcement officer. It's about maybe a 200 question plus or minus test. And there is a percentage that they actually have to pass with. And that percentage We can say, what do you think that percentage should be? It should be 100%. It should be maybe 95, something to that effect. It's actually 66%. Just think about that. Now, that doesn't mean everybody in that cohort is at 66%. But I want you to chew on that. 66%. And what does that say? That says a lot. That says a lot. It actually says about, it actually says that the people that are being selected, the great percentage of those people may not be what your standard of what they should be is at. It may not be that. And so if 66% is the floor, you know, the United States Marine Corps has a saying, everybody wants to go to heaven, no one's willing to die. You know, everyone wants to, you know, be in this occupation or says a lot about this occupation. Well, I can do this better, I can do that better. But how many of you all are willing to actually put your life on the line to actually be able to do the job that you think you can do better? Because there's the other side of that too. So 66%. I want you to take that into consideration when you get pulled over by the police. Okay? Now, don't take what I just told you and use that as a reason to, hey, you know the reason why I pulled you over? 66%. Don't do that, please. Don't do that, because that's not going to end up well. Okay? I want you to understand that there are certain levels within law enforcement. You got your federal, your state, your county, your local law enforcement. And so typically, the majority of American law enforcement, the minimum standard of education is a high school diploma. That's the minimum. That's the minimum. Now, some of y'all can argue, well, that's the minimum for most places. Nah, that's probably the minimum and the maximum, okay? In some police departments, you have it where the education is highly promoted. You know, you get your degrees and things like that. But in some of them, that's it. That's it. And there's no promotion in that. So take that into consideration too. Well, some of you may say, well, I have a high school diploma. And in having a high school diploma, well, what do you mean? I'm smart. Yeah, but in your field, we're talking about law enforcement, right? We're talking about understanding certain concepts such as case law, your Miranda versus Arizona, your Salinas versus Texas, your Graham versus Connors. These things we're going to go into and talk about because you're going to learn a lot about case law. I'm going to trigger you and trigger your brains and things like that. I also want you to understand that, you know, don't be afraid to hit that star button. Let's go on ahead and get those stars in, because that star supports great content like this. Not even just my show, but Maze Jackson's What's in It for the Black People and other shows that we have on What's in It for the Black People Radio. So go on ahead and hit those stars. Go on ahead and promote, because if you want to hear content like that, nothing is free. Okay, so let's go on ahead and promote it. All right, let's get going. So, you know, you got your high school diploma, and so remember the time when you went to high school? And when you went to high school, if you didn't do good in school, you were stuck there. That's right. You could be 25 years old with a seventh grade education, and that's where you're at, right? But now, with all this legislation, such as No Child Left Behind and things of that nature, right, you can get socially promoted, right? Socially promoted. And when you get socially promoted, you got somebody who's 18 years old who may not do so well, and now he graduates with a 4.2 GPS. You heard me say it right, 4.2 doggone GPS, right? And then they just last a little bit, don't get in any trouble, and then next thing you know, they get to 21 years of age, no criminal record. No criminal record doesn't mean they haven't done anything, it just means they haven't been caught, charged, and convicted, right? And then you got your 66%, right? Come on, let's look at that. Now, I've seen some of the comments right here, and some of you may say, well, that's why they're bullies. That's why they're this, that's why they're that. Well, don't take that shiny star and that wonderful uniform that they may be wearing and say, hey, this guy came from a great background. He should understand the concepts of policing and understand the concepts of civil rights and understand the concepts of not, you know, putting a knee on my neck, or he should understand the concepts. No. That's what you think about law enforcement because of the honorable nature of that profession. Whether you agree with that term or not is irrelevant. The profession is honorable because someone has to do it, because you're not. And here we go. Human. You see that uniform, but you forget the human. That person sees you as a driver or a suspect or whatever, but they forget that human. They forget that human. And so here you are. Let me give you my experience of why I became a cop. Hey, I became a cop not because I was bullied. I was smaller. I was faster. You couldn't catch me. I told you where I was at. That big old track field right there. Yeah, I got tired of seeing my friends get beat up in school. And so it would always be like, well, Mike, why you didn't help us? I'm like, why you didn't run with me? You got to be on that field, baby. You got to get that running going on. Okay, I can't help you if I wasn't taught how to fight, right? But I got tired of seeing my friends get beat up. And I decided, see, when I was young and living in the hood and living in the projects, things like that, I was in the hood, but I wasn't of the hood. So I didn't have people to expose me to that type of hood lifestyle. But you know what I did see? I saw other officers, mainly black, right? And also white too, helping other people, right? Some of you all may have say, well, that didn't happen around my neighborhood. I get it, that's you. I get it, that's you, right? But what I saw people helping people who couldn't help themselves. Did you hear what I said? People who are helping people who couldn't help themselves. And so that's why I decided to become the police. I wasn't bullied. You couldn't catch me. Maybe now you can catch me, but then no, right? And so looking at that, why is it the situation that, there's a phenomena called inattentional blindness. In that phenomena, inattentional blindness, and I'm going to introduce that to you in this show, where there's going to be something I'm going to have you to do to show you what your brain does to you in terms of pointing the blame towards someone else when, it could be your fault in this situation too. And sidebar on that. It's just absolutely amazing how, we get into those interactions with the police with a higher degree of expectation that they should know. And what you may find out, how many of you all listening or watching didn't know anything about the standard of education. If you want to protest something, start there. It's the legislature who sets these standards in place according to the Illinois Police Training Act. Why is the standard 66%? And so how many of you all have made an assumption that the police should know, that the police should be able to do, and so you operated on that assumption. And that assumption is reasonable. It's very reasonable. But then when you find out that this person, unlike some of the other officers, might have been the one that got the 66%. And so you wonder why things didn't go out so well. Here we go. Remember, I told you why I became a police officer, okay? And so if you look at the reason why I became a police officer, some people did become the police because they were bullied. Some people did become the police regardless of race because they came from a troubled background. You have to understand how empowering that is to be in a group of people who go into trouble and try to right the wrongs, whether you love it or hate it or whatever the case may be. How many people actually desire to actually want to come in and help people, and sometimes things go wrong, right? And so now here you are having a bad day getting pulled over by the police, and here they are just trying to pull you over because maybe you were speeding. Can we agree throughout this podcast and throughout this segment to actually have a real honest conversation? Because if we're not going to be honest, then we might as well just cancel everything, don't even talk, let the stuff continue, and we're going to continue to have problems. We got to continue to be honest here, okay? In having that honest conversation, how many of you all got pulled over by the police and you were having a bad day before the police got there? And when they pulled you over, you took how you were feeling that had nothing to do with them out on them. How many police officers did the same thing? Before we even begin to talk about race, let's talk about human conflict. Before we begin to talk about race, let's talk about how we bump heads with each other. And remember, that police officer probably could have came from the same background as you, could have came from that same troubled neighborhood as you. You think because they're white they don't have problems? They're white or black or whatever. They got problems too. And so here you are, thinking that they're supposed to operate in the prefrontal cortex, that part that controls reasoning and logic and things like that, when actually they could be operating in that amygdala because you triggered them, because they triggered you. And now you got human conflict. We got to have those honest conversations. We got to get to the reason why things happen. But now before we take a break, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. taking calls now. We're at the 30 mark. Taking calls? Took calls? I think that's gonna do good too. Oops, sorry. I think I've started enough stuff to get the calls going.
All right.
Thank you for calling Colin Studio. Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome, host. You have not started a show session in Colin Studio and cannot yet receive calls on the Maze Jackson Show. Please visit the Colin Studio website and begin your set.
Okay. Wait a little bit.
You go live, get ready.
Okay. You said we'll be able to? Okay. All right, we are back. We are back with Triggered. Again, I am Instructor Mike. And don't forget to hit those stars, by the way. Don't forget to hit those stars. And sure, we'll be able to go on ahead and square things away with you. By the way, these stars are what support the show. These stars are what support the show. All right, yeah, here we go. Yeah, good. So these stars are what support the show and allows What's in It for the Black People Radio to be able to bring together a lot of good content. I want to go ahead and take your calls right now. I'm sure that this is a very interesting topic to talk about policing in Chicago at the Chicago Police Department. And this is just kind of open-ended. What do you think about Police Superintendent David Brown? I've heard some comments about him and comments about, State's Attorney Kim Foxx and what, if anything, could be done to bring about some closure, or not closure, but the justice that we need to have in our communities, bridging the gap between the police and the community. So give us a call, 872-259-7474, 872-259-7474. I'll repeat it again, 872-259-7474. Give us a call so that way we can go ahead and talk about these things on Trigger with Instructor Mike. I think Superintendent Brown, he is not necessarily given the benefit of the doubt coming into a large town or a large city such as Chicago. Dallas police, that's about a 3,000 police level force. Dallas is a different town, has different dynamics, has different elements in terms of the crime that goes on. Yes, they have homicides. Those of you all watch the First 48, they live on the doggone First 48. So Dallas is not stranger to murder and stranger to things that go on in the communities in Dallas. But Chicago's a different beast. It's a different beast. And so, another question that I'm being asked while we're waiting for calls to call in is what do I feel about Mayor Lightfoot's response to the rioting and the looting? It almost makes me wonder what it would be like if Toni Preckwinkle was the mayor. Now, we all know about Toni Preckwinkle and, Cook County Board Commissioner, and, when she was campaigning, if you remember her campaign speeches or her responses to every question, it was always, Chicago's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city with walls. It's a beautiful city with halls. It's a beautiful city with flowers. It's a beautiful city with this. And I think that was always what came before whatever response that she had. And so it would make me wonder if she was the mayor, what, if anything, would she do? Before I even go into Lori Lightfoot's response, what, if anything, would Mayor Daley do? I remember Mayor Daley, Chicago was untouchable. You could not go downtown if you lived, if a hair on anything was touched downtown, you would be sure that the TAC teams would be released in all the South and West Side districts. That you would never go downtown and attempt to try to do any of the stuff that we are doing. And so I can't help but call on my experience as a child, both in the hood and going downtown, that I don't know if Mayor Lightfoot is really handling this well. I don't know if she's handling this well. If you paid attention to how Mayor Lightfoot even became the mayor, she didn't even start off campaigning in the black community. It was in other places, and the black community was kind of like the mid to last stop. And so now you got to invest in South and West, and it appears to be that she's not doing much about this at all, except good sound bites. And a reporter, asked a very valid question about, her response. And so she didn't like the fact that the chief of police, or the superintendent of police, David Brown, was being baited into his response. And I just don't see that she's doing anything about that, and she's going to have some trouble down the road. That's just what I think. It's very personal how she tends to attack the other alderman. His name escapes me right off the top, but just how she attacks him in him pretty much just stating what it is. It's just out of control. And so how do you not that I would have to agree with one of the commenters. That's probably one of the most emotional that I've ever seen her on the topic. And so I just don't think that it's just gonna, I don't know, is she gonna be a one-term mayor? We'll see, because Daley has had his issues, but the one thing I can definitely say, and even as a kid, you don't have to be too much astute into politics to see when someone is commanding and controlling a situation. And so we saw that in Daley. I don't know if we necessarily saw that in Rahm per se, because it was it was no rioting. It was a lot of protests that just spawned all over the place. But I just don't know if Mayor Lightfoot is handling this in the most appropriate way. All right, we do have a call coming in. Let's go on ahead and take this call. Hey, what's going on, caller? You're on Trigger with Instructor Mike. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Hey, what's going on, caller? Caller, cannot hear you. Hello? All right. Okay. All right. So we're going to go. Oh, hey. Okay, go ahead. Hey, what's going on? How are you? Hey. Okay. All right. So you said put the bridges up before they get downtown, right? Nah, you do want. But you do understand that the bridges are after downtown, as you get to go into another part of the near North District. Okay, all right. I thank you for that. All right, yeah. Pretty much he was talking about just putting the bridges up before they come downtown. I don't know if that's going to do anything, because there are other ways and other avenues to be able to get into downtown, but I do understand that stop them before they get there. But that's not I don't know if that's going to do anything if you don't get the real basis of why things are even taking place at all. So you said you all can't hear the caller. All right, we'll just go on ahead and check a couple of things and make sure that you can hear the callers when they do call in. And don't forget to hit those stars. Those stars, in fact, allow What's in It for the Black People Radio to be able to host such wonderful content, not only as this show, but the Mays Jackson Show and other high quality programming in What's in It for the Black People Radio. So don't forget to hit those stars and support the content that supports and educates you, because without education, without a vision, without knowledge, the people perish. And it's not just black folks, it's everybody. Look, we all can use some knowledge, and I'm definitely going to drop more knowledge here. Kind of consider this your criminal justice one-on-one that you don't have to pay for. Here we go. There is a question that's being asked on there. In my opinion, why don't we have more black officers? I will say this, that it could be something about the hiring and the way that the hiring does take place. But again, it could have something to do with people applying to be the police. I want you to understand there's a thing called double marginality. When I taught criminal justice in the colleges, one of the things that we learn about and that I taught about is double marginality. And you'll ask any black cop out there, they can tell you that it's a high likelihood that we get it from both sides. when you get it from some officers who think that some black cops are just going to give black folks a break. That's one argument. And then when you go out into the community, how many times we hear such things as, Uncle Tom, you're a part of the system that's corrupting or messing with us or doing this. And I can't tell you how many times in my desire to want to help people out and help people understand things about the criminal justice system so they can see it from both sides, not accept it. You don't have to accept it, but you do need to understand it. It's quick to emotionally and understandably, but emotionally call someone an Uncle Tom or call someone, another racist name that in essence may only make you feel good and may not affect the person you're talking about. But then at the end of the day, there's still the issue that needs to be addressed. And I agree with you, Kurt, one of the viewers on Facebook. Criminal justice needs to be taught in the high schools. It just needs to be taught. I mean, here I am, I have a master's degree, stuff like that. I would be willing to go into CPS and to teach criminal justice, but I want you to understand that there is power in keeping you ignorant. There is power in making sure that you don't understand certain things about how the system works and how people work. Because if I can keep you blind from that which will empower you, I can continue to use you how I want you to be used. I can continue to push the narrative that'll make you think, because you have nothing else to combat that information that's being given to you. And so they say knowledge is power. Ignorance is probably even more powerful. Isn't that something? Ignorance for what you don't understand, what you don't know. Today, it's the first time some of you are just finding out that it's officially 66%. I mean, just take that into consideration when you get pulled over by the police, right? If the standard is low, stop expecting things to be so high until you can start making the suggestions or the request from your, not necessarily your alderman, but your state reps, because they are lawmakers, your state senators, to change the law where the standards are high. But then when the standards get changed so that they can be high, so you can have police officers who understand and appreciate the rule of law, then you got to start applying. You got to start being willing to strap on that belt and get out there and patrol, to be willing to get out there. Here's another thing that needs to be taught too. I'm also a crisis intervention instructor and an anger management specialist. And I can tell you, having been in all of those areas and all of that I love training. That crisis intervention, maybe now it's being taught to a certain level, but when I was in the academy, crisis intervention wasn't necessarily taught as much. Anger management wasn't necessarily taught as much. And so I think if you begin to teach about anger management, I think if you begin to teach about crisis intervention, then you can begin to have officers who may themselves have come from a background where it was filled with crisis, where they came from a background where it was filled with problems within themselves, where they can begin to understand themselves and heal themselves so they can be better servants of the community. It's hard for you to come into a situation and heal when you don't have any life equity. Let's go on ahead and go to the callers. Call in 872-259-7474. Caller, you're on the air. How can I help you?
Yes, I'd like to know if I could meet at the station to drop off a deposit, because I'm having a hard time with technology.
Okay, if you want to meet at the station for dropping off a deposit, having a hard time with technology, what I can do is I can get back to you with that in terms of the address where you can deliver those things, because the studio could be in a variety of places. Wouldn't want you to go out into the country to have to figure out it's out in the boondocks. So we'll get.
Hey, I have a car.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We'll get back to you. And I thank you for your followership, and get other people to come on in and call in about these issues. We need to talk. We need to have an honest conversation, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. I don't know if you have another caller on the air, but you said he was one of the newer officers. You had to pass a credit check for his gear. Yeah, it was pricey. I can tell you that there are a lot of things that need to be discussed in terms of the reform. So that's where we're going to talk. We're going to trigger you, but I'm also going to talk about some reforms and get your suggestions too, because we can sit here and continue to talk about the problem all day. but the type of lifestyle that I've lived, I want to hear about some solutions. I want to hear about where can we go from there? It's easy to point that finger, but as leadership guru John C. Maxwell said, you got 3 options pointing back your way. Don't just give me the problem, give me 3 solutions as to how we can solve that problem, And that's what we're going to talk about on Triggered, okay? So we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break, or just a break from this, and we'll be right back shortly with calls. Don't forget to call in 872-259-7474. We'll be right back.
And I think this is amazing. This will solve.
Company. I'll do the company first. Okay. All right, and we are back. We are back with Trigger with Instructor Mike. Don't forget, if you're interested in concealed carry or other security training, you can reach out to my company, Security Training Concepts. 644 East 79th Street in Chicago for concealed carry training. And it's very important that you learn to protect yourself. It is no one's job to protect you but you. I say again, it's no one's job to protect you but you. And if you want that kind of mess your feelings or screw your feelings training, where you want to be able to sweat and learn and understand how to effectively use a firearm in a real environment and understand conflict avoidance, that's also important too. Security Training Concepts, okay? You can also follow me on Facebook, and also follow What's in It for the Black People Media. What's in It for the Black People Media, the Maze Jackson Morning Show, and other high quality program. Hit those stars, and support high quality content that supports you. All right, we're going to go ahead and take another call regarding this topic. Caller, you are on the air. What's going on? Hey, what's going on? Hey, caller, what's going on? Yeah, hey, how are you? All right, will do. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much for calling in. All right, good. We're going to continue with that great content. Again, I saw a comment that was on here about, I think it was from Jay Reed, about black police. He's a Chicago police officer, and how he wants to see more black people apply for the police department. And I definitely want to see that, and you see that in Chicago. Maybe not the black people applying a lot for the police department. I don't know. I'd have to get those specifics, but I definitely will tell you this. If you look in the Asian community, you have a high concentration of Asian officers in that community. In the Hispanic community, you have a high concentration of that. But in our community, we need to have a great degree of educated and able and brave police officers who come from the backgrounds that we come from to be able to understand and educate us on our issues. But we got to be honest in our communities too. When they come around, don't let the first thing that comes out your mouth be, "Hey, Uncle Tom." Don't let the first thing that comes out your mouth be, "Oh, it's you." Just imagine coming into that situation wanting to try to help you, not knowing anything about your situation, and all of a sudden the first thing you do is attack that black police officer. So no matter what, just imagine being a 20-year black police veteran and they have the same attitudes as the racist whites that are on the police department. Not all white folks are facing this issue, but there are some racist whites and even some, how many of y'all had some messed up black police officers you didn't encounter too now? Come on, we got to be honest about that too. So in order for us to have healing, we got to be able to be honest about this conversation and be able to contribute to the solution, not continue talking about the problems. That's not going to do anything. Okay. All right. So let's not forget. Okay. If you got suggestions, if you got comments, things like that, you can always reach out. Mike Brown on Facebook, inbox me. You can always listen into What's in It for the Black People Radio, the Maze Jackson Morning Show. Make sure you tune in. That's one of the reasons why, and let Maze tell it, how we came to know each other and things like that. How we came to know each other was a situation he was, in and trying to just provide some assistance. And sometimes, you don't always have to agree. But like Martin Luther King said, we need to agree to disagree without being disagreeable and still be able to meet on the level and still be able to do what we need to do in this effort to have a community, because where there is no unity, you cannot commune, so we cannot have community. You see how that ties in together? And so one of the things that I love about his show, man, I've learned so much from him. Yeah, I'm plugging his show on this because it's important. One of the things I love about his show is that I've learned so much about politics. And what sometimes people don't understand is that politics and policing, even though they should not have anything to do with each other, they do. They do. And just understanding about the police and the systems and the legislators and the legislation and what's coming on the forefront of the game. I'm telling you, What's in It for the Black People media is where you need to be for the conversations that's going to trigger you, for the conversations that's going to make you uncomfortable, for the conversations that's going to make you comfortable, for the conversations that's going to move us forward. And if we can start there, that's what needs to happen to have that spark. So don't forget to hit those stars, because that helps provide high quality content. You want to see more conversations like this. You want to have some of your criminal justice questions answered. You want to see me bring on some people, some lawyers, some people who can give you the information you need so that you can be able to make a better decision. I am of the belief that the difference between those who do and those who don't is not a matter of those who can and not a matter of those who can't. It's those who have before them a plethora of decisions or a plethora of options to be able to make the right decision. And in order to be able to have a plethora of options to be able to make the right decision, you need to understand and get that information. You shouldn't have to go to college to get it. We're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm going to push that for sure, because a lot of us are children on the inside. I don't care how grown you are, right? A lot of us are children on the inside with wounds from our childhood that we have not healed from. We've built walls around, and they serve as a basis for the motivations for the things that we do. It's easy to say, yes, you had a choice and you made that choice, but we don't look at those choice motivators. We got to look at those choice motivators. And that means I'm going to trigger you. That's right, you watching. That's right, you listening. I'm going to trigger you. I'm going to force you to take that dagger out of your heart. I'm going to force you to take that dagger out of your brain. I'm going to force you to take that dagger out of your back. I'm going to force you to stop sitting here and pointing that finger at someone else. And I'm going to force you to look at those three fingers back at you, because I want you to heal, because you cannot be anything for anyone else until you are who you need to be for yourself. You can't be a good husband. You can't be a good wife. You can't even be a good member of the police department or any type of military special forces team when you are not a good you. There is no I in team, but there is a me. And if you are not a strong me, then you are going to join a strong team, and you're just going to make that strong team meet for the predators. And that's why people have been preying on us. That's why people have been preying on the community, because while we are wholesome in number, we are meat for the predators. And West got to stop. So we're going to start building some strong me's. That's right. And I love you enough to trigger you, because I don't care about your feelings. My thing is, as an educator, my job is to put that dot on your brain so that when life shoves that pencil in your hand, you will be able to have a dot to connect. That's what educators do. Think about your favorite teacher that you had growing up. You didn't have to sleep with him. You didn't have to do any of that doggone stuff, right? But you think about the things that they empowered you to be able to do. They saw that insecurity, which is the essence of ignorance. And they empowered you with the skill to be able to unscrew what was screwed. They saw where you were going, and they saw you at a place where you were able to learn. And I want you to be honest when you watch my show. When you listen to this show, I want you to be honest. And I want you to say, you know what? Take a good deep breath, let it out, COVID. But I want you to say, I don't know. And be humble. In saying I don't know, that is where the portal of learning begins. That's where it begins. Because even though I love education. And I know those of you all watching and listening do too. And don't forget to watch the Maze Jackson morning show in the morning. Don't forget to watch other high quality content from What's in It for the Black People Radio, because education is what's in it for the black people. Our ancestors fought and died to give us the right of access. We owe it to each other that when we know something, we pass it. And you would be doing yourself and the ancestors a disservice by not listening. By not listening. We are going to listen, and we are going to survive, because education and empowerment and forward movement and propulsion is what's also in it for the black people. Oh, I'm just so excited to be able to have this show. I'm just so honored and privileged to be able to come before you and be able to speak. And you just don't know. Don't forget to hit those stars again. That's what supports this content. Don't forget to hit those stars. That's what supports this content. And I think for every star, it's like a penny or something like that. Yeah, so go ahead and hit those stars, because if you want high quality content, yep, that stuff costs. That stuff costs. So, again, I'm Instructor Mike. If you're trying to get into a concealed carry class, come on, see me. Instructor Mike, you can hit me up in the inbox, all that good stuff. Mike Brown on Facebook. Yes, Mike said it on Instagram. Subscribe to my YouTube page, Instructor Mike. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications. Okay. I teach a lot of content on there. It's not just in my class. 16 hours is not enough. Not enough. And so if you want high quality content, you come here for What's in It for the Black People Radio. If you want high quality instruction, you know where to go. All right. So for today in this program, it's been an awesome program. And I need more of you all to call in too. Don't forget the number, 872-259-7474, 872-259-7474. And this is Instructor Mike for Triggered. Until next time, it's no one's job to protect you but you. I'll see you.